Hello to you and welcome to Around the Bases with the head baseball coach of the NC State Wolfpack, Elliott Avent. I'm Tony Haynes. During the course of the baseball season, we'll have 4 of these. We are shooting from the Backyard Bistro, and if you weren't able to join us earlier today for Around the Bases, we'll be back here on March 21st. We look forward to seeing you then. NC State right now off to a 3-1 start. Wolfpack has a weekend series coming up at Doak Field at Dale Park. We'll talk about that with the head coach of the Pack, who is now in his 20th year here at NC State. 20 years. That's a long haul right there.
Yeah.
Do you have any memories of the first interview you had 20 years ago at NC State?
Wow, yeah, I do. I can't remember where it was, but I know I was so excited. Went and got a big-time haircut at Manmur Barbershop, just like the old days. And I remember saying this was my New York Yankees, which you can appreciate.
Mm-hmm.
This is the best job in the world. I'm the happiest man in the world, luckiest man in the world. And I remember Ray Tanner called me, and he said, hey, we'll see about your New York Yankees when you're making that drive from Reynolds Coliseum with no locker room and to the field back and forth and all this stuff and the facilities. We'll see about that. That's what I remember about it the most.
So you were interviewed with Les Robinson at that time? Do you remember?
I thought you meant the interview getting the job when I was.
Initially, did you have any memories of the first interview?
The interview with Coach Robinson. Oh, okay. Yeah, that was in Albuquerque.
Okay.
And so I had to drive to Albuquerque about 3 hours north from Las Cruces. And Coach and I met like at a restaurant and just had a great time. I actually got out and drove around for a while, showed him Albuquerque, and just kind of talked for a while. Yeah, we had a great time.
And you were at New Mexico State at the time. So how did you receive word that you had been hired as the head baseball coach of the NC State Wolfpack?
I was sitting in my office about 5 o'clock in the afternoon and on a Friday. I got a call from Coach Robinson. He said, Elliott, this is Les Robinson. I'd like to offer you the job. And that was probably the happiest day of my life professionally.
And at that, it took you about 5 minutes to start packing, right?
I was already packed, basically. I was just so happy.
You were hitting the road. Well, your team is off to a 3-1 start, 4 games in. You had the rain out yesterday against St. John's. We'll touch on that as we go along. And one of the things you said last week before you took your team down to the Battle of the Beach is you got to play games to figure out just how good you are. How difficult is it to gauge that in fall practice and in the preseason?
It's not impossible, but some guys just don't practice well. You know, some guys, when the game starts, some guys go up, some guys go down. And so you have to play against, other people. And what we try to do with the NCAA is almost everybody has a non-season where they play games except football. Mm-hmm. Basketball has exhibition games. Soccer has a fall season, a spring season. Volleyball has one. Everybody goes out and plays local teams. You don't travel far, but you play local teams. And we've asked for years to put that in play where we play 4 games in the fall, can't get it passed. So a lot of teams have just scheduled like 54 games in the spring, and they still play 2 games in the fall. That's how important people think it is.
What's the holdup with that in the fall? You're talking about trying to play 4 games like that.
NCAA.
Yeah. Do they give a reason why?
They never do.
Okay.
Not one that makes sense.
They just say no.
They say no.
They just say no. All right. Well, have you ever had guys, and I see this in football, I've seen it in basketball, you'll be in preseason practice, and then they light it up. You're playing in scrimmages. They're outstanding, and then the lights go on for real, and all of a sudden they're not quite as good.
Right. When you cross that white line, it does something to you.
Mm-hmm.
It can elevate you or it can stagnate you a little bit. And you take our freshman right now, Xavier LeGrant. Mm-hmm. He's a perfect example. When the game starts, he rises to his play gets a little bit better.
Yeah, and he has a great high school resume. I want to talk about him a little bit later on, but you've run into some bad weather early in the season the last few years, a lot of cancellations, haven't been able to play as many games as you would like. You had one of those yesterday. St. John's was here, and because we had the severe weather rolling through, you couldn't play that ball game. Because some of the teams you compete against, the Florida States of the world, they don't run into those weather problems. How important is it to avoid those cancellations this time of year and get in as many games as you can?
You need to play a lot of people early, and you need to play a little bit of, I think, tough competition early to prepare you when the ACC starts. When the ACC starts, the 4th weekend into the season, everything changes. Everything changes. And you have to be the most prepared you are. You have to know as a coach who can come in this situation pitching-wise, and they seem to handle the pressure, who can get lefties out in a certain situation. You have to kind of know everybody, a guy that can come in for late-inning defense and make your club better. So many things have to be answered in the early part of the season. So that's why I try to play a little bit of a tough schedule, and I try to play as many games. We had 5 games a week scheduled for the first 5 weeks. And that's a little bit tough, and it's going to be taxing, and there may be some ups and downs, but hopefully it will prepare us for the conference a little better.
Yeah, and one of the things you were dealing with yesterday, the severe weather coming through, and, you look at the radar and you say, well, it may be out of here by this time or that time, but is it a nightmare for you trying to do all this guesswork with the weatherman and the meteorologists who are telling you one thing, and then maybe somebody else will tell you something totally different?
Yeah, it was a nightmare yesterday, but it really shouldn't be that way because basically you can watch, the weather all you want to. We got a service we pay money to, and they're very, very good. They're probably as good as it gets because they have to be. You're talking about airplanes coming in. You're talking about all kind of things. So they're very good, but I've always felt like one guy alone controls what's going to happen to the weather. That's God. And I don't care who we call. I haven't seen the weather forecast be that accurate since I've been here. So I just believe in that theory where everybody knows what's going on. You don't make too many decisions. You don't push games back. You just kind of leave it as is. If you can play, you can play. In baseball forever, teams are used to staying at the ballpark waiting it out. Mm-hmm. And I kind of wish we'd have done that yesterday because if we had, I think we'd have played at 3 o'clock. And I think when the rain, I think it finally came like at, was it 5:15 or something like that? I think we'd have got 7 innings in. But anyway, it wasn't to be, so we pushed it back to 5, and then the wind got high, and then at 7 o'clock it just rained so much it wasn't possible.
Well, let's move past the weather and let's talk about baseball. And you opened the season last weekend, Battle of the Beach down there around the Myrtle Beach area. You played 3 games, 3 different opponents, lost the first, won the games on Saturday and Sunday. Now, your weekend starters were Johnny Piedmont Friday, Brian Brown Saturday, Joe O'Donnell on Sunday. But will you need a trial and error period with Coach Foxhall to solidify the rotation and figure out what it's going to be maybe in a month or 2?
Yeah, you very rarely start your season out with the rotation that you end it with. So Coach Foxhall and I were talking this morning. Ryan Williamson was set to go yesterday against St. John's. He didn't get to know. We need to see how Ryan is right now. He took the fall off and nursing an arm that didn't feel great, so he took the fall off. We need to see how Ryan's throwing. So we're thinking about this weekend starting Ryan on Friday night, and then going to Brian Brown, and then going to Joe O'Donnell, giving Johnny Piedmont next Tuesday start. And it gives Johnny some time to work some things out. He wasn't as sharp last Friday as he was in the fall. And so we want to give Johnny maybe an opportunity to have a couple bullpens, work some things out. So we could change the rotation for this weekend.
He's an inspirational story, Johnny Piedmont, as you've said so many times, because he's had injury issues, but he's battled back time and time again. And he gave you some good games last year. And the issue with him was length. He couldn't go deep into games. Do you expect to get him deeper into games this year? Is it hard to know?
Sure hope so. I know one thing. He had a really good fall. And in the fall, that's what I saw. Just haven't seen that from Johnny Piedmont so far this spring. But he is as you mentioned, Tony, he's an inspirational leader for us. He's a leader in the clubhouse. He's a great story. And, he pitched, let's not forget, he pitched in the ACC championship game, and he also pitched in the regional championship game in the same season. So he's very important in our ball club, and I'm sure he'll get going again soon.
Tell me about the evolution of pitch count limits this time of year compared to where some of these guys might be in a month or 2.
Well, everybody has their opinions about pitch counts, and it's not just a number. It's not just 85 or 110. It's who the individual is, what's his arm like, what does he do? Is it Chris Williams who throws from down here, and or is it a big strong guy like Carlos Rodon, whose legs were so big, and he obviously or Roger Clemens, he was a Roger Clemens type guy, Nolan Ryan type guy, or is it Joe O'Donnell? Mm-hmm. Low arm slot, throws pretty hard, sinks it, but not as big as a Carlos Rodon and a Johnny Piedmont. So there's so many different factors. But early in the year, we're trying to keep our guys right now about 85 or 90. But I've seen box scores already where some guys pitching throughout the country are 105, 100, 110.
Already.
They're up there already, but they may have had more opportunity to get there in warmer weather than we were afforded.
There were times, though, where you had to go out there and literally yank the ball out of Carlos Rodon's hand, right?
He never wanted to give it up. Still doesn't. Still doesn't.
Corey Wilder, I want to talk about him. He struck out 79 in 64 innings last year. That's excellent. But he also walked 59. We know that control was often an issue with him. Against Morehead State the other day, he didn't strike out a batter, but he had just one walk in 4 innings. Is he trending in the right direction?
Well, you certainly hope so. That was encouraging what Corey did. That's why we went and got him early, just wanted to let him leave on a good note. And because if Corey pounds the zone, then he'll have a chance. But it's so important now that you really pound the strike zone. And we have had some walks early in the season. And I think we were very fortunate at Myrtle Beach to win 2 out of 3 down there because we probably didn't pitch as well as we're going to need to in the ACC. And so I thought we were very fortunate to come out of there with 2 wins.
You know, Brian Brown was terrific last year for you, 7-3 with a ERA just above 2. Now, he got knocked around the other day by Coastal. As you say, Coastal is one of the best offensive teams in the country. But for a guy like Brown who relies on command and changing speeds, he relies on precision. Are these early season games sometimes more difficult?
Yeah, absolutely. He doesn't have a great feel for his changeup yet, and people are sitting on his changeup right now. Last year he was an unknown. This year they have a better approach against him, and he's also kind of a fly ball pitcher. And the game he pitched at Coastal, the wind was blowing out pretty good to left field, and it's a short porch, much like Yankee Stadium's right field, and both teams were taking advantage of that short porch pretty good. So it was just a tough day for him to pitch, but Brian will get better. He'll work at it, and we're not worried about that at all.
You beat Coastal, but you had to outscore them, outslug them. Just how good an offensive team are they?
I hope they're the best offensive team we're going to see all year except us, is what I hope. They got everything. There's nothing they don't have in their lineup. They got power. They can run. They got great discipline at the plate. They put the ball in play, don't strike out. I mean, that's one of the best offenses in the country, I'm pretty sure.
You know, baseball is a sport that's meant to be played in warm weather, preferably sunny weather in the afternoon. It's nice. Pitchers like it when it's warm. Hitters certainly like it when it's warm. But let's face it, this time of year you're not always going to get that. And it's uncomfortable playing baseball in cold weather, sometimes rainy weather if they decide to play in light rain. Do you learn a lot about the character of your guys in some of these early season games? Yeah. How they fight through some of these games where maybe the weather's not that great?
Yeah, it's such a mental game. It's such a mental. That's why I think baseball is one of the toughest sports. I see a lot of football coaches back there, and I know how tough football is from a physical standpoint and a mental standpoint as well. But our baseball, I think, is the toughest sport just because of the mental toughness that it takes to survive. It's such a failure game, and mental toughness just plays so much a part. And so, yeah, early in the season, we're trying to look at the character of some guys, how they handle certain things, how they handle failure, how they handle adversity, and that's big on who I play down the stretch.
Well, hopefully the weather's going to be good this weekend. NC State has 3 home games against Wright State, 3 o'clock Friday, 3 o'clock Saturday, 1 p.m. start on Sunday. Come on out to Doak Field to Dale Park and check out Coach Avent and his Wolfpack as they tangle with Wright State. You're watching Around the Bases with the head coach of the Pack. Stay with us. We'll continue with more after this. This is Around the Bases with the head baseball coach at NC State, Elliott Avent. I'm Tony Haynes. Thank you for watching on GoPack.com. We do this 4 times over the course of the baseball season. Next up will be March 21st. The show is taped during lunchtime at Backyard Bistro. So we hope to see you on March 21st. Come down and talk baseball with the head coach of the Pack. NC State is 3-1 right now, getting ready for a 3-game weekend series against Wright State at Doak Field at Dale Park. Well, you were talking about the Yankees earlier, and you remember Tommy Hendrick. Well, you probably don't remember him. You're not old enough, but you read about Tommy Hendrick. He was the guy they called Old Reliable. Remember that? I think your Old Reliable has got to be Will Gilbert and how he has emerged in the bullpen. And, you know, I remember him coming into that epic game against North Carolina, the ACC tournament in the 17th or 18th inning, and because you had the pitching staff that you had at that time, I guess he was a more of an afterthought at that time. Maybe not to you, but he wasn't a guy that was pitching a lot for that team. Did you see him getting to the point where he would be as good as he's been for you the last couple of years?
Will Gilbert's a great athlete. He's very athletic, and he's very tough-minded. He's actually a player. He can play a little bit. He's not just a pitcher. He can play a little bit. So he understands the game. He loves the game. He's played it his whole life. He's played for some good people here in Raleigh. And but Will Gilbert for us has been Tommy Henry. He's been Mr. Reliable and what would you call him, old reliable?
Old reliable.
Will's
not old, but
he's been old reliable. He really has, and we depend on him so much. And it's hard for baseball to go in there unless you're a professional, and even then, it's easier from a maturity standpoint, but still hard because the game's so hard. But Will Gilbert has handled his role as well as anybody on our team, and I think our whole team has as much confidence in Will as anybody.
yeah, he's a lefty, but you don't mind putting him in there against right-handed hitters either, do you?
No, he's got that slider, and he's got a good changeup. So he's got some things to beat both left and right. So it doesn't matter when we put Will. He's awfully tough on lefties, but it doesn't matter.
Well, the shortstop position, arguably the most important position on the baseball field other than pitcher and maybe catcher. And you've been blessed here. You've had some really good shortstops. The Diaz brothers come to mind. Of course, the magic we saw with Trey Turner. Joe Danan has moved over there, and he's playing short this year after doing such a great job at third base last season as a freshman. How do you think Joe's handled himself so far over there?
Joe's been great. He, Joe's just a sophomore. Came in as a freshman, started pretty much every day at third base, and probably played third base as well as I've seen it played since I've been here at NC State. And but we talked about him moving to short in the offseason. He worked really, really hard all summer on his game, and went back to Miami and worked really, really hard. And he's handled it very, very well thus far.
Of course, everybody knows his famous uncle is Alex Rodriguez, and there are a lot of people who aren't A-Rod fans for obvious reasons. But one thing about Alex, it's always been said by his teammates, wherever he's played, he is a very hard worker. Alex Rodriguez really works hard as a baseball player. And do you see that with Joe Danan? Do you see that type of work ethic rubbing off?
Yeah, and I'm a big Alex Rodriguez fan. Alex Rodriguez came and spoke to our team about maybe 8 years ago, and it was one of the best talks I've ever seen. And so I've followed him pretty much since then, and I've heard exactly what you said. The greatest thing about Alex Rodriguez is his work ethic. I mean, he's done so many things in the game, but he still works hard in the offseason today. And I see a lot of that in Joe. Joe's work ethic is probably second to nobody on the team except maybe Preston Palomero, who just works all the time. And but he got that from his uncle. He got it from his dad, and it's one of the big attributes of Joe Danan.
Is there something to that pedigree, guys like that who, in this case, A-Rod's Joe Danan's uncle, Preston Palmero's dad was one of the great hitters of all time in Major League Baseball. Is there a carryover there, that pedigree, where they see growing up just how hard you have to work to play at a high level?
There's no question about it. And you grow up and you're in some big league ballparks, so you're around other people because you know your uncle, you know your dad. You'd rather, talk to other people. So Joe'd rather be around Robbie Cano or somebody like that. And Preston has had, his dad's been in so many places, Texas and Baltimore. He's been around so many great players, from Roberto Alomar to whoever. So you get to see the work ethic of everybody. And but I think it also gives you an understanding of how tough this game is. Most people on our team and throughout the country kind of fight this game. It's such a hard game, and nobody likes failure. So they either back off and put a shell around themselves to keep from failing, or they kind of just fight the game. And both are bad. And I think more than anything, the pedigree has helped them understand the complexity of the game and the toughness of it and figure out how to grind through all that. You know what I'm saying? And work your way through that. And I think that's what's helped them more than anything.
Last year, Joe did not hit for average, but he hit for some power. And he also had a lot of clutch hits. I mean, big hits to help NC State win games. What are your expectations for him offensively this year?
Joe, like you said, he drove a lot of runs in. And Joe was frustrated last year. I know he was hitting in the low 200s for a lot of the season, and it really bothered him. And this is a guy that has understood there's going to be failure in this game. And even with that, he had trouble accepting that. I just kept telling Joe, forget your average, quit looking at it. You're driving runs in. And that's the most important thing. Averages are good. They can be misleading, as all stats can. But Joe gets the clutch hits, drives runs in, and he was at the top of our club on RBIs last year.
Ryan Willard, of course, has played some third base early in the season. So far, so good. He has played airless baseball up to this point. How did he embrace that move last year? A lot of second base, now at third base.
He was good about it. He came in as a junior college shortstop and was going to get drafted very, very high. So he has some attributes that are going to help him down the road. But we just felt like Xavier LeGrand, as a freshman, getting him at second base where he was more comfortable off the bat, we thought would be good. And Steve Patera. Steve Patera is a very interesting player. I don't think people recognize him that much. I'm not saying he's the best hitter on our team, but he's a guy that I'm always comfortable with. He's up. He has a great swing. He has a short swing, good eye, a lot of confidence in his ability. And he's arguably one of the best hitters in our ball club. So we're trying to find a way to get him in the lineup. And so we're doing so many mixing things right now. And right now with Xavier starting to play well and Stevie nursing a hamstring, Ryan's been at third base, but you may see Patera pop up at third base this weekend and see how that combination goes.
Well, he is an interesting guy. He's from Cary. He was with your team last year, but he appeared in only 6 games, just 0 for 3 at the plate. Now all of a sudden you're looking at him as somebody that might be able to help you this year. When did it become obvious that he could help your team this season?
We thought he could play last year. We thought he was very steady, very solid player, accepts the game, really has a great mentality for the game, and very tough-minded. But, last year we had Ratledge, and, we had, some guys, so we didn't need him as much. But all fall we've watched him, and every day you appreciate him a little more.
Sometimes you have to wait your turn, don't you?
Sometimes you do.
Yeah, depending upon what position
Sometimes
you play.
you do.
Now, Xavier LeGrand, you mentioned him from Charlotte. Couple of hits and 3 RBI against Moorhead on Tuesday. Pretty highly rated prospect. What jumped out at you and your staff when you were recruiting this guy?
Coach Hart knew. Coach Hart recruited him out of Charlotte. He just knew what a special player he could be. Matter of fact, we were really worried about him, going to the major league draft. But his parents really wanted him to go to college. He really wanted to come to school, so he, it was. But he's such a talented guy. Such a talented guy. Played Team USA. So he was out there in that market where you thought he could go very, very high. But, if things go well, I tell Xavier all the time, if he keeps working hard, as he's doing, and keeps progressing, there's a chance he could be one of the top players. He's a special guy. I mean, really special. He's special. Like, he's got some qualities that, you can just name major league players from the past or currently. They have that ability, and he could be a high draft pick in a couple years.
All right, let's look at this with him because this is pretty remarkable. 55 plate appearances his senior year in high school. He did not strike out once. Now, that's hard to fathom, really. You think about that. Even in high school, you look at him now, does he already have a pretty mature approach when he's at the plate?
He's got a really good approach for somebody who's 18 years old. He keeps his hands back so long. He waits to the last second to make a decision, almost like a Barry Bonds or to go even further back, Henry Aaron. He kind of reminds me of Henry Aaron a little bit. And just can wait forever. And it's like you can't beat him with a fastball, but if you throw him that breaking ball, he's kind of on that too. He's a very disciplined hitter, a very good hitter, but he's in a different league now. High school is high school. It'll take him a while to get, adjusted to this league, but that's why we're trying to get him a lot of playing time early.
That's how you avoid strikeouts, though. The longer you can wait and still get the bat through the zone. Makes all the difference in the world, huh?
Work for Barry Bonds.
Not a bad guy. Andrew Kisner last year, first year as a catcher, of course, third baseman as a freshman. Last year he was your catcher, batted .317, number 2 on the team with 42 RBI. He played 56 of 57 games last season, caught most of those. How did you think he handled the workload?
Well, he's so strong, and this guy's so disciplined. His work ethic on the field, off the field, in the classroom, he never changes. He's just a consummate. It's kind of like Russell Wilson a little bit. He's that kind of work ethic. So he's going to prepare his body. He's going to prepare his mind. He's always going to be ready. So that kind of guy can tend to be a little more durable. And but we also have Chance Shepard, who's catching very well right now. And so there's a chance we can give him a little more break behind the plate today.
Yeah, that was going to be my next question. Chance caught the Moorhead State game. He had 2 hits on Tuesday. Remember, he finished strong last year, and really down at TCU, he hit one of the most dramatic home runs in NC State history. That center field blast is still in my mind. It's so memorable seeing that ball go over the wall. It was incredible. Against one of the best closers in the
Against
country.
a guy who hadn't given hardly any hits all year,
Yeah,
let
that's
alone a
right.
home run, yeah.
Yeah. Well, did Chance, is that something you mentioned he's catching very well? Is that something that you wanted him to spend time on during the offseason and you looked at him in the fall and had him working behind the plate a little bit more?
Yeah, Chance has so much confidence in his ability to catch and to play left field. He can do other things. He's a good athlete. And he can do more things. He's such a big man. He's so big and strong that I think sometimes people forget that he's how agile he is and some things he can do. So, but Chance, he is catching very, very well, and we think even though Kiz is very durable, to give him a little bit of a break would be good for us in such a long season.
You've been lucky enough to coach some really good center fielders here at NC State, especially in recent years, guys that could really go get it. Does Josh McClain have a chance to fit right in with some of those guys?
He really does. Like you said, we've had so many great center fielders from Matt Camp to Tom Sergio to, Lord, you can just think of over and over and over. Most recently Jake Fincher. Brett Williams might be the most popular one of all time. I've never seen anybody play center field as well as Brett Williams. But, Josh McClain has a chance to be in that ballpark with all those guys. He's gotten off to a great start for us, and he had a really good fall, and hopefully he can stay healthy because he can really do a good job in center field.
I think people are still going to YouTube to watch Brett Williams catch in center field.
I do. Every time I get down, I pull that one up and play it.
You can make the case it may have been the best catch ever, anywhere, any league, any level of baseball.
Unbelievable, that guy.
Josh McClain, it's interesting to me, Coach, because you started using him more and more at the end of last season. What did you see going on there that kind of convinced you that we got to get this guy out there more?
He's just a real tough guy. Mm-hmm. I like tough players.
You do like those guys.
I like tough players. I like blue collar. I like tough. I like guys that want to grind it out. End of the game gets very dicey, and you want your toughest-minded players in the game when the game's on the line. I've heard I think I heard one story about him in high school. I don't know if it's true or not. He was racing somebody or something on like pavement or something, and he in a race, and he dove at the end to beat him on concrete. You know what I'm saying? I mean, that's the kind of guy. I don't know if it's true or not. I've never asked him, but it's always stuck in my mind. He's just a tough money. So we got him in the game a little bit at the end last year, and we started him at TCU in the regional. He seemed to handle it pretty well.
You need to ask him. Did you really dive on pavement?
I'll get you to ask him.
We want to know.
I'll get you.
All right, I'll ask him. When I start doing baseball, I'll look forward to that. I'll ask him that question. I said, Coach Avent, by the way, tells me Tommy DeJunis last year did a really, really good job. We know the talent he possesses. He had a chance to play for the USA baseball team as well during the summer. You coached with that group. I remember one year. Just how valuable is that experience for young guys?
Well, playing with Team USA, to wear the USA uniform is just a special, special thing. It kind of changes how you feel about everything when you put that uniform on. And then to play in some of the crowds. I remember this summer with Team USA, he pitched in Charlotte in front of a sold-out crowd. I think it was like 12,000 people on July 4th against Cuba. And he's 18 years old, and all of his family was there. And he had to go in and close that game against professional players. And I remember sitting in the dugout and thinking, we'll see how Tommy handles this. And he grew up a lot this summer, and he's not only a special pitcher. Tommy plays very well. I try to figure out a way every day to get him in the lineup because he can play left field. He can play third base incredibly well, and he's a good hitter. So he's a great athlete and one of the big sparks on our ball club.
Some of those Cuban hitters may start thinking that these NC State guys are pretty good.
Yeah, maybe.
Carlos did pretty well against them, right?
Yeah, he did. Yeah, that may be one of the best games I've ever seen Carlos pitch over at Durham Bulls against Cuba. Probably one of the best games I've ever seen him throw.
Elliot, good seeing you. Thank you so much.
Good seeing you, man.
This is fun. I look forward to the season, and I know you do too. Don't forget this weekend, Wright State is coming in, Doak Field at Dale Park. 3 o'clock Friday, 3 o'clock Saturday, a 1 p.m. start on Sunday. We're just getting it going. NC State baseball will be back here at Backyard Bistro for lunch. Mark it down on your calendar. That'll be March 21st for our second installment of Around the Bases. For Coach Avent, I'm Tony Haynes. Thank you for logging on to the official website of NC State Athletics, gopack.com.